What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by Fitty, Trent, Kevin. Adam's here to hang out. He didn't watch the game, but he's here to chill and maybe add a few words here and there. But we're here to discuss this game. The Ottawa Senators take game one of the Eastern Conference Finals, 2-1 in overtime in Pittsburgh against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The overtime goal scored by Bobby Ryan himself. Game winner, basically off a face-off. Got a breakaway, skated right past Olli Maatta, went to the backhand, and scored a goal in overtime to take the game and steal game number one against the Penguins. Make sure you guys are in the live chat or in the comments below letting us know what you guys think of game number one of the series going forward and the Senators and Penguins. I see that Josh is in here already. Karlsson is in here as well. Karlsson says, hello, bottom line view. What's going on, Karlsson? Josh says, poor Mitch. We will get into the game itself in a little bit. But overall, like from an entertainment standpoint, guys, I thought this game was ultra boring. It put me to sleep. I'm almost to the point where like I'm like really tired. I had to go get tea for this recap. I'm like really tired, bro, because that game there was like icing after icing after icing after icing after face off. After commercial break, it was just a really boring game. And going from the Penguins and Capitals series to this series, I just felt like it was a very it lowered the bar. And that's kind of what I felt from the second round of the third round. For me personally, the second round of the NHL playoffs is usually my favorite. And I felt like the third round, last game was okay in the West. This game was pretty boring until like the overtime, and then it got a little bit exciting. But from an entertainment standpoint, guys, what did you think of this game?
Well, for the most part, I mean, I agree with you. It was not the most exciting game of hockey. I mean, we usually see the Pittsburgh Penguins start lighting up with tons of shots and stuff like that. This was kind of a different game. I mean, Ottawa was more playing their trap-style hockey, which they needed to play if they wanted to win the game. So it was a lot of trap, as you said, a lot of, missed opportunities of just icings and face-offs and just like simple can't make a good breakout plays here and there. But overall, yeah, it wasn't the most entertaining game, but Ottawa did what they needed to do to win, and they were able to shut down the Pittsburgh Penguins for the most part. I mean, as you said, overtime, that was basically the most entertaining standpoint, but that's just when, everything's on the line. You have to start throwing everything on the net, and you have to start getting those big bursts of speed and taking some chances. So that's really when the game started turning on. But overall, it was an okay game. It wasn't terrible.
And just before Kevin goes, I'll just add that maybe that's how you have to beat the Penguins, because I know, Mitch, you were expecting like Sens are going to have to score a lot of goals, but maybe if you just bore the Penguins to death and don't let them play the style of hockey they like to play, maybe it evens the playing field. And at the end of the day, it's about the wins. They're not thinking, is Adam, Trent, Mitch, and Kev enjoying this game? They're just like, can we get out of this with a W?
I understand, Adam. I think we're going to talk about the style of game that was played, but also how this game is going to dictate the other games. And I don't think this game is going to be the way that the rest of the games are played, but we'll get into the reasons why, at least in my personal opinion. Kev, what did you think about the game from an entertainment standpoint, bro?
Hey, the Ottawa Senators did not come to Pittsburgh to entertain your fans. I'm sorry. They came to get a win. It's ugly. It's brutal. It doesn't look pretty, but it's a win. And in a lot of places, actually, they dominated the game, actually. I actually did feel that Ottawa was a better team tonight. I think, yes, Pittsburgh hit posts. Yeah, Pittsburgh had 5 power plays, didn't do anything with them. Ottawa just stuck to it. They played physical. They won the faceoffs. They did what they had to win, and it's not necessarily to entertain the fans in Pittsburgh. And it's not even going to entertain the fans in Ottawa. It barely entertained the fans that were the play-by-play folks on CBC and NBC.
No, but we do this for every game. I was just wondering what you thought. Were you entertained by the game?
No, it wasn't that intense, but I don't think Ottawa wants us to I think Ottawa is not going to intense us. I can only think of 2 Ottawa games that were truly somewhat intense in the playoffs, and they were the 2 Boston games. I mean, although they did the big comeback on the Rangers on Saturday, they've had some exciting moments, but they haven't had a lot of huge, intense moments.
All right, let's get into the game itself. Just wanted to know what you guys thought, because I just, like, right away, I was just like, man, this game is really boring. And from my Twitter feed, that's what most people were thinking as well. So goal scorers by Pajot with a goal in the first period, 6 minutes in, I think. Basically turnover behind the net by, I think Dumoulin was trying to pass it across to his partner. I think it was Dumoulin. I'm not quite sure, but one of the Penguins defensemen was trying to pass it across behind the net. Bobby Ryan picked the puck up, made a nice backhand pass in front, and basically a wide open goal in front of the net. Nobody was covering him. And that put Ottawa up 1-0. And that's the way the game stayed for a very, very long time until, minutes left in the third period, about 6 minutes left. And then you have Evgeni Malkin, who scores the goal tip off of Chris Kunitz's shot from the point and goes right through the 5-hole of Anderson. Bobby Ryan then scores, as I described it to you earlier, on the breakaway in overtime. Not a lot of penalties in this game. There were penalties in the first period. There were 4 penalties in the first period, all by Ottawa. So it was interesting to see that Ottawa not only killed all of them, but Pittsburgh really got no momentum off of any of these power plays. They hit a couple posts here and there. They had a couple of good opportunities here and there, but they weren't able to score any goals, and that was really big for Ottawa to take the advantage going into the second period. Pittsburgh had 2 penalties, one in the second, one in the third. Ottawa also had an interference on Marc Stone in the second period. Looking at the players, Ottawa, some contributors through that one line that played really well. Bobby Ryan's line, 2 points for him. He was one of the stars of the game for Ottawa. You have Stone, who had an assist as well. He was also a +2. He did take that 1 penalty. Erik Karlsson did have a pretty solid game offensively, +1, 6 shots on goal, 3 blocks defensively. MacArthur was a -1, but he was, all over the place. He had a hit. He was on the power play occasionally, had 3 shots on goal, a block. Who else was pretty good? Burrows was around the puck, could have had that 1 goal that was called early by the ref. Cece, I thought, made a couple of good plays off defensively. What else we got? Phaneuf and Mathot were kind of solid. They weren't, bad or good. Turris didn't have his greatest game, but he was decent in the face-off dot overall. And Anderson, I thought, was the best player for Ottawa. He made some really nice saves, especially on a couple of those power plays, and especially in the third period. The Malkin one got by. There was one really nice tip in front of the net, and he dove. He kind of dove, and he was just really, really calm and snatched it out of the air. So Anderson did have a really good game in this one. So that is good. He typically in the past has not played well against Pittsburgh, so maybe he'll get some momentum off this big win. For Pittsburgh, Malkin did have the goal, 4 shots on goal. I didn't think he was dominant though. He had a few opportunities here and there. He had 1 rush where he could have scored, and the other tip. Hainsey had another point on that. Kunitz, I thought, actually had a really good game. Him and Hornquist, I thought, were maybe the 2 best players for the Penguins. Dumoulin, I thought, was solid minus that 1 turnover, which was more of a miscommunication. Gensel had a couple of opportunities. Crosby didn't do much in this game. What else we got? I didn't think Sheary was very solid. I do want to say that the Pittsburgh 4th line, again, played really well. They had a few opportunities there. But overall, no one on Pittsburgh really played great. I thought Fleury, again, had a very solid game, had 33 saves on 35 shots. 2 goals against. Now he's 8-5 in the playoffs, but I thought he had a really good game, minus those 2 goals, but those were pretty easy goals. One was a breakaway and one was an opportunity right in front of the net. So overall, his defense kind of let him down on those 2 plays, and I thought Fleury had a really good game. The goalies both had really good games, and I thought this was, especially in the first period, kind of like a game where they were trying to get used to each other, seeing how each other were playing. But overall, for me, what I took away from this game was, Ottawa did have a very good game. And I thought Ottawa, played a solid defensive game, and they were very good in their system. But I just thought Pittsburgh looked pretty bad. I think they looked similar to the way that they played against the Capitals in games 6 and 5. They weren't able to handle the puck really well. They weren't necessarily speedy coming transitioning. They did have a couple opportunities, and they were close in the game. And especially in the first and third period, they were generating a lot of opportunities to score. But it just didn't seem like they were, the team that played in Game 7. They didn't seem like they were energized, and they didn't seem like they were into the game. And I think a lot of that does have to do with, I thought this was going to be a really tough game for them to win. Like I said that they would probably win this series in 5 games. And the one that I was actually most worried about was this game, because I think that, just the coming off of Game 7 against your biggest rival and how hard fought that series was going into Game 1 in the Eastern Conference Final versus a good team that, is kind of played a lot less games, a lot more rested up. The Senators definitely trapped the Penguins in this game and stole the victory overall. I do think things will change in Game 2, but we'll see what you guys think about this game. That's my overall impressions. If you're a Penguins fan, I wouldn't panic. And if you're an Ottawa fan, I would be happy, but I wouldn't be overjoyed.
I think you need to panic, Mitch. I'm sorry. I think the Penguins are completely overrated. I'm going to make that statement right now. I think you guys are in deep trouble. Let me look at the stats. Let's look at the stats. First of all, I'm going to call you out on the games part, because Ottawa and Pittsburgh have played the exact same amount of games. And don't tell me that the Washington series was more intense. It's 12 games. It was 12 games versus 12 games. 12 games versus 12 games. Let's look now at some other stats, though. Okay. Goals the last 4 games for Pittsburgh. 5. Over 1 a game. The last 2 home games, no goals in the first period, no goals in the second period, no goals in the first half of the third period, and basically 2 goals in garbage time with 5 minutes left against Washington that meant absolutely nothing. Sidney Crosby, 1 point in the last 3 games since the concussion. He is not 100%, and he's not 100%, by the way. The best winger in this series is Bobby Ryan. There's no question about it. The best defenseman in this series is Erik.
One game.
Is Erik Karlsson.
Why are you saying series like it's been like 3 or 4 games?
I'm giving you 4 games of stats.
One game. The best winger in this game was Bobby Ryan.
The best winger in this series is Bobby Ryan.
Technically, he's right. I'm with Kev. Technically, it's still a series, even 1 game. It's still the series between the two. So,
do you want me to look up the definition of a series?
Mitch, you are looking at this with Pittsburgh eyes, and I get it. Your team is in trouble. There are serious red flags with this.
I don't see it because
let's look at the overtime
you thought we were in trouble when we lost to Washington 2 straight, and we got destroyed in those games. At least we played the Penguins. The Penguins played just as bad in this game, but only lost in overtime.
I'm sorry, Mitch. Come on. There is some serious red flags with this team. Crosby is not 100%. Your forwards are not 100%. You're out with Daly, who's maybe back for Game 3. You're without Letang. Your defense is weaker than you think. Mata looked like he was walking, not skating on that Bobby Ryan goal. There are a lot of problems here. And you can refuse to look at them, and you can underestimate Ottawa all you want. But this series is not going to be as easy as you think. And if you get by, which you might, your next series is not as easy as you think. There are some serious red flags with this team. And the big one being Crosby is not 100%. Where's Nick Bonino, Mitch?
He was 83% on the faceoff dot tonight.
And he did nothing else. He did absolutely nothing else.
The Penguins didn't have a good game. I just said that.
I know, but that's been your excuse every time they play a bad game. But don't you think that's because of Ottawa and not because they just had a bad game?
I said Ottawa had a good game, but I think it was more Pittsburgh. The emotional factor of coming off a Game 7 against your biggest rival is a big thing. It's a huge thing. I think Ottawa had a good game. I said that. They were the better team tonight. That's why they won the game. But Pittsburgh didn't have their best effort because they came in this game.
They haven't had their best effort with 3 of the last 4 games, Mitch. And really, let's just be seriously honest here, Mitch. Had it not been for Marc Fleury's shaft, that game would have been a totally different game in Game 7. Washington dominated that game for the most part as well. There is some problems in Pittsburgh. I know that they're the defending Stanley Cup champions, and we're all like praise the Stanley Cup champions, but there are some problems here. And I think that the injuries are starting to wear down.
I'm not going to reply to you on this. I'm not going to. I've tried to respond to you, but I'm just going to let you talk until next game, and then we'll see what happens.
And you might tie the series next game, but it doesn't mean that there's no red flags here.
They're obviously going to tie the series next game, I think. But I'm just saying, I just think the funny thing is just how this Ottawa team sucked since the first round, and now they're one up in the Eastern Conference Finals. I know it's just one game, but it's still that's what
well, I mean,
can you just admit that Ottawa is a lot better than you said they were in the first round?
That's the other thing.
I'm holding out for that because it's only one game.
Okay, I'm just saying that. Yeah,
and
okay.
I think, and
I
want to
hear that. If that happens, we need to hear that they do not suck. That's the only thing I'm looking for.
I will. If they bring the game to 7 games or bring the series to 7 games, I will say that they're a good team. But my thing with this, Adam, is what I personally saw, knowing this Pittsburgh team, is that they didn't play their best game. They didn't have their best game, and they weren't up for this game. We'll see next game. If Ottawa takes next game, then sure, I'll call Ottawa a great team. But, honestly, I can't judge it. It's one game in a 7-game series. It was an overtime. Kev is acting like it was a 5-goal win. Like, you had more of a right to say this when the Capitals absolutely walked all over the Penguins in Game 6.
Not necessarily because it was Game 6. But when you see the trends and you look at the stats and you look at what is going on.
I didn't even
this
think
is not
that
a trend.
Ottawa didn't even dominate this game.
Outshot, out face-off, out hit.
All I saw was Pittsburgh going on offense in the first period, and then Ottawa would ice it. They got one turnover goal. Otherwise, the game was even. They're not going to play the game that Pittsburgh plays, Mitch. They're going to play an atrociously boring style of hockey game. They're not going to play like Washington. Yeah, but Pittsburgh had the puck the majority of the first and the third period.
And they only had like 6 shots in the third period.
Yeah, but not shots, but time of possession. They had the puck.
Why didn't they get it on net then?
Because they didn't play good. They couldn't handle the puck.
Mitch,
well, how'd they have the puck then?
there's a trend of a problem here, and 3 of your losses in the playoffs are at home, and 2 may be in overtime. But that if you have the home ice advantage, you got to keep that. You've just
maybe they're playing better on the road then.
Maybe. I'm not saying Pittsburgh is going to get swept. I'm not saying that Pittsburgh is going to necessarily lose the series. But
you can say that all you want. I just can't wait for the next 3 games, next 4 games.
I can't wait for the next.
You said.
I just think there are some serious red flags here. There are.
You know what? I still think Pittsburgh's the better team, and I want to see. I'm somewhat with Mitch because I do want to see Game 2, and I think Trent's probably in the same boat. Like just from what I heard happened, I just think we have to see Game 2. But if this is a trend that continues, then it's not looking good for Pittsburgh. Which I think it could be a trend, just because you can just. I think Guy Boucher is really underrated, and
yes, he is.
The big thing I think in this series. Before this game, they were 2-11-1 playing in Pittsburgh. The Ottawa Senators. They've won 2 games in that building in their whole entire career, including 3 overtime, in their playoffs, including losing 3 in a row last time they played in the playoffs. Obviously, that was a long time ago, but still, winning Game 1 on the road in a place where you don't win at all is huge, in my opinion, regardless of the 2 teams playing. Just that stat alone, you go into that building only winning 2 games in the last 15, and all of a sudden you win. I just think that's impressive.
Didn't Tampa Bay win Game 1 of last year's Eastern Conference Final? Right after Pittsburgh beat Washington?
No, it happens. Everything, like teams winning. I'm just saying, right now with the game 1. Let's see what happens in game 2. I'm just saying, I like that stat. I like bumping them off on the first game.
Mitch,
where Pittsburgh has only lost.
I just think Kev's overreacting a little bit.
I'm not overreacting. I think you're underreacting. Actually, I think
I'm calm, bro.
Okay,
I know what the Penguins are made of.
Okay,
you can continue to doubt the team that's actually won something.
Let me ask you a question.
Fine.
Let me ask you a serious question here. 2 questions for you. First one, which team is better, this team right now, or the 2016 Penguins?
2016 only because they had Letang.
Okay, so there's one red flag. Second, what would you expect the score to be versus Ottawa on Monday?
A win?
Okay, by how much?
I don't know, because it's the playoffs. Every game could be in overtime. It doesn't really matter who it's against. All these games are close. It's just more winning the games. It's not necessarily the score of the game. It could be 2-1. It could be 3-2. It could be 4-2. It could be 5-1. I don't know. I'll just say a win.
Do you not think they need to dominate the game, though?
No.
A win's a win.
What makes you say that the Penguins need to dominate?
No, but I'm just saying close games, the way Ottawa's been playing, they're the cardiac kids. They've done it all playoffs. You do not want to be in a close game with Ottawa. They're 6-1 now in overtime. They've won. You don't want to go in overtime with Ottawa. That's a trend.
They have a ton of 1-goal game wins. They have the most of all 4 going into the final 4.
Good for them.
Okay, and the other thing that I do want to point out to you that I would be concerned about is going forward is your specialty teams is quite concerning.
Yeah, I think one thing is, though, I don't think that will continue that much because, we got, 5 power plays? I don't think we're going to go 0 for 5 again.
No, you're going to get your power play opportunities for sure. You're going to get your goals. Listen, I don't think the Pittsburgh is going to necessarily lose the series, but I do think that there are some red flags and there's some trends that are starting to be a little bit disturbing going forward that I think if you're a Pens fan, I think you should be concerned.
And Vogt says they're 0-10 on the power play.
Yeah, but I'm not. A lot of people, actually, a lot of Penguins fans are. But me as a sports fan, I don't overreact. I didn't overreact in the Patriots game when it was 28-3.
What happened in that one, though? What happened?
What?
What happened in that one?
Patriots won.
Patriots won.
What?
I don't know what you're trying to say.
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
I had no idea what you were saying.
Listen, champions are champions. I'll give you that. But there are red flags. That's all I'm saying.
We also have a green flag that came up. Even though that Marc-Andre Fleury has been playing fantastic, Matt Murray is back. That's a very big green flag.
It's not Fleury, Trent.
It's not Fleury's fault whatsoever. And because I haven't gotten to say anything yet, go ahead, give me your analysis on this game. You've been waiting. You could have talked. I've been waiting.
He was sitting there. Was watching him. He was like, he had his hands up in front of his fingers. He's like, I'm gonna get into this now.
Now I'm just enjoying it because I'm enjoying you guys saying. Some of you guys are saying, Pittsburgh Penguins, they should be worried. Some of you guys are saying, Pittsburgh Penguins shouldn't be worried. And I'm just like, all right, what side are you guys trying to persuade me on? Because I haven't said anything. The Pittsburgh Penguins should not be worried. However, Ottawa Senators, they are a great team. They are a phenomenal team. They deserve to be here. And honestly, yes, they deserve to win this game because they dominated this game. Does that mean that they'll dominate this entire series? That's something completely different. Game 2 is going to be a huge, completely different story. Yes, Crosby, he's not been playing the best hockey of his career, but I'm not specifically worried about him being concussed and not being able to play because you see him still going in the corners, playing a little bit of the dirty work. He had 4 hits during this game. No, he was not there offensively, but he's still there. He's still giving it his grade A effort. Some players dropped the ball. Brandon Dumoulin, for example. 4 turnovers in this game. Too bad, so sad. Is he going to do that again? No, because, I have confidence in Sullivan to coach the team, to lead them to be champions. I mean, I still have confidence, utter complete confidence with the Pittsburgh Penguins. However, Ottawa Senators, don't tread them lightly because they are a tough team. And yeah, you know what? I think Pittsburgh, they thought this would be a little bit of an easier series. You saw that at the beginning of this. They thought it would be easy. They thought that they'd be walked all over, but they got proved differently. This is not going to be an easy series. It's going to be a competitive series. But no, if you're a Pittsburgh Penguin fan, don't panic because you still have a great chance. And if you're a Senators fan, don't go celebrating in the streets because there's still 6 possible games left in the series. But then again, hold your heads high. You just beat the Stanley Cup champions of last year. Do it again if you can. Keep playing your style.
That's exactly what I said. Thank you, Trent.
I'm exactly on your side there, Mitch. I just wanted to everyone just get it all off their hearts because this is a 7-game possible series. Anything can happen. Both these teams are great. Both teams deserve to be here. And no matter what, either one of these teams that go to the Stanley Cup final, they'll be dangerous no matter what.
True.
All right, let's get to the chat real quick. Karlsson says, "What's up, fam?" Ryan says, "Go Sens" with laughing faces. Josh says, "Very good game." I do not understand where you got that from. I was trying to fall asleep. Sports Effect says, "Do the Sens still suck?" Yes, but the Pittsburgh Penguins sucked more today. Josh says, "Anderson legit stole the game." Haha. Ryan says, "It was like how Nashville plays."
Very similar, actually. Reminds me a bit. The two teams remind me a bit of each other.
Karlsson says, "I thought it was close and it will be a tough series like Caps and Pens." Sports Effect says, "Anderson was standing on his head, and if the Sens want to win, they are going to have to play with a lead in games." CBR Paul, "What's going on, guys? WTF Penguins? ? Bodo is concerned about the power play. He says Crosby pulled the James Harden tonight. Josh says all 4 conference final power plays are shit. Bodo says Pens not going to win 4 straight. He's concerned about the fans not showing up. A lot of people are cheering on Kev. Well, only Josh, really. Taco is really concerned about our health right now. Bobby says the Penguins are fine. They had a horrible game last year in game 1 of the conference finals, and they came back to win. Bobby said Olimata skates like he is in mud. I agree with you. I've said that if you've watched the Puck It Up podcast for any episode, I probably brought up how Olimata can't skate. What else we got? He's a smart player. He's a good passer, but he can't skate. Josh says he's very pro Ottawa. Says, to be honest, Fleury is the Pens' only hope. And then he says, Pens might not make it to 7. Laugh my ass off. Taco Bro says, stop arguing. Pens had a great game. It's just they lost.
Hey, no. Hey, Mitch and I are fine.
He's saying, stop arguing about who wins and who wins this series, just so you know Pens are going to win, okay? Bobby says Penguins are still going to win. Josh says it's the Sens defense. What else we got? Bobby says, I'm not concerned in Capitals. Bodo was telling me that if the Patriots, the Penguins aren't the Patriots, and I just said, if you didn't understand what I was trying to say, I was trying to compare the way that I look at the games. So I don't overreact to any sports game. I just let it play out. Let it play out. Sit there and wait. CBR Paul, and that's from me. That's why I brought up the Patriots. That's from me being a Patriots fan, watching the Patriots forever.
No, and too with the
Patriots,
Patriots,
not over until it's over. That's my experience personally.
In the regular season too, it's like you're not really losing that much, right? Like a loss here and there doesn't really hurt you because you're like, as long as we make the playoffs, yeah, it must be nice, dude. Every week with the Eagles, it's just like we gotta win this week because every week matters for most fans. But Patriots fans, I guess you're right. You could just be like, if they lose 3 games in a season, it doesn't even matter as long as you're number 1 seed still. Like it's wild.
Doesn't matter if Pens don't win this year. They'll win next year if they are healthy, says Sports Effects. CBR Paul says they looked uninspired and sluggish. That's what I thought. He also said, I agree with Trent. I think the Pens were sleeping on the Sens a bit. All right, so those are the comments so far. Any thoughts on those comments? Any reactions? Like, I think a lot of people are kind of in the same boat. There's some that are pro Ottawa, some that are pro Pittsburgh, some that are not worried. I think, Kev is on the very pro Ottawa. Pens are in danger. Trent is trying to wait it out. I'm a little bit more on the side of Pittsburgh where I'm like, I think they'll rebound. It is just a bad game, and the Capitals maybe took some gas out of them for that first game. But we'll see what happens in game number 2. I think a lot will be told in game number 2. It happens Monday. We will be recapping it. We'll give our last thoughts about this game in particular and looking forward. But Monday's game will tell a lot about this series. If Ottawa comes out and they win another 2-1 game and Pittsburgh looks again sluggish, like they, just came out and walked through the motions, then Ottawa is probably going to win the series, and I was wrong about Pittsburgh. If Pittsburgh comes out and they rebound, then I'm most likely going to be right. I'm not saying that it's 100%, but I'm saying most likely that was just a bad game for Pittsburgh, and this will rather be a very competitive series, or Pittsburgh will start to take control. Either way, I think we're looking at a big game too. Guys, any final thoughts? I know Trent didn't have a lot of, you didn't have a lot of time to talk on the game in particular. But guys, did you have any thoughts on this game before we wrap it up?
No, I'm still in the boat that the Penguins still are the favorite. It's nice to see the Sens, because I'm kind of a fan of them, the way they play and what they've done. And Ottawa, kind of very similar to the Canucks, I find. When it comes to like Stanley Cup appearances and whatnot, they only have 1. We have 3, but still, I don't mind them. But still, Penguins are still the huge favorite. But I think Ottawa should be really happy what they did winning Game 1.
For sure. I think if you're a Senators fan, you have to, be happy about every game that you win. No matter who you are. If you're a Nashville fan, you should be happy about winning Game 1. You should always be happy when your team wins. It's just, if you're a Pittsburgh fan, don't be too pissed off that your team lost Game 1, because there's possibly 6 more games, at least 3 more games. And then if you're an Ottawa fan, like Trent said, don't go out in the streets and start celebrating, because most of the time when you do that, it turns right around on you and bites you in the ass. So
regardless, even if you win or lose, don't burn down your city. Trust me, it just doesn't go down well. Don't burn down your city.
CBR Paul says, final thoughts, Kev sucks.
No, that's not true.
It's not true. That's actually incorrect. We'll see. Well, that's all I'm saying. I'm just bringing up stats and facts that I know.
Bobby made a pretty good point, because I was trying to remember what year this was, but the Penguins lost Game 1 in 2010 against the Sens. Penguins won the next 3 and took the series in 6.
That's 2010. This is the point, and I'm trying to make.
But Adam was bringing up the past of 2-11 or whatever the hell it was.
No, I know that's a trend in the negative direction. So when you do win and kind of break the trend, I'm not saying.
Yeah, that's his point.
That was my point. It wasn't anything to do with like you win Game 1, you win the series, you lose Game 1. It was just
but Kev is saying the Pittsburgh lost Game 1 last year against Tampa. Pittsburgh lost Game 1 against the Senators. Same Senators, not the same team, but the organization.
Mitch, my argument isn't about last year or 2010. My argument is about the current state of the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's that is where I am concerned. I know that you have that's all.
No, I was just saying if Adam can bring up that point, I can bring up this one.
You can bring up whatever point you want. I'm okay with it.
And I think, Kev, you're overreacting. I've seen it before, bro. It's nothing against you. I think, if you watch the CBC broadcast, if you're Canadian, it definitely seemed like the sky was falling for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, Jesus, I had to change that channel pretty quick. So,
and my arguments aren't based on what was said. My arguments were based on what I saw and the research I did in the last few games myself doing that. It wasn't because of Houston and Simpson or McGuire or anything.
I say this, and I'll give the Senators credit for game number 1. And they played a good game. They were the better team tonight, and they won. But again, I thought Pittsburgh played sluggish. And in the last series, I think it had more to do with Washington, again, being one of the best teams in the league and pushing the Penguins than the Penguins being a bad team like Kev thinks. So, anyways, thank you guys for joining us for this live recap of the Ottawa Senators and the Pittsburgh Penguins game number 1. Tomorrow, we will have a recap of the Western Conference final game number 2, Anaheim versus Nashville. Again in Anaheim. I think, Trent, you'll be on.
Heck yeah.
Adam, will you be on?
I'll see what I can do. I'll try
And
my best.
Kev, will
I'll
you be
try.
on?
I'll try.
I'm not sure if I'll be on. We'll see what happens.
I'm
I'll
the
try.
only guaranteed. I'm sorry.
I'll try, but Fitty Trent is for sure here. And Monday, for sure, I'll be back to talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins rebound game and talk to Kev about that. So thanks, guys, for joining us. Peace out.
Peace.